Hey there, Susie here. Before we get into today's episode, I want to share this special message with you. Now, my co-host Michelle and I love masterminds. Not only do we belong to masterminds, but we also host a mastermind. We started it almost 8 years ago, and it is the premier mastermind for women business owners who want to grow their business with a specific focus on marketing. Now, this group is usually completely booked out, and very occasionally we open the doors and invite a handful of women in. So if you're growing your business, but you're struggling with feeling overwhelmed, or like you constantly have a split focus when it comes to your marketing, this could be exactly what you're looking for. We have an amazing time together, and the women in the group are extraordinary. They're great cheerleaders, supporters, advisors, and colleagues for you. And they're also seeing extraordinary results. We see people cracking the $1 million, $2 million, $3 million mark, launching new e-commerce sites that go from $0 to $10,000 a month in sales. They're doubling their conversion rates, they're growing memberships, they're selling courses, they're growing their personal brands, and they're getting all kinds of media exposure and speaking opportunities and so much more. You can learn more about the mastermind and join the wait list over at herbusinessmastermind.com. We're going to open the doors soon, so you definitely want to be on the list to get an invitation. So head on over to herbusinessmastermind.com. Hi, you're listening to the Content Sells Podcast, the show all about how to create content to attract, convert, and keep your ideal clients. Welcome to episode 217. I'm Susie Daphnis, and here with me is my co-host, Michelle Falson. Hey, Michelle, how are you?
Hey, Susie, I am doing really well. Thank you so much. At the time of this recording, I'm just back from an amazing trip to the US to be part of my mastermind that I'm a part of there. And I've come back super inspired and charged up. I also managed to get some travel time in while I was there. I don't always, but this time we built it in, and I got to explore the Moab Desert in Utah, which was absolutely an incredible experience, somewhere I've always wanted to go, and it was mind-blowing.
I saw some of the photos, and I love the desert, and it was just the expansiveness. It was just, I'm so glad you got to build that travel time in. So good. When you're over there, you're with the mastermind, you're going to have your head in strategy at work, just to have that special time. So good. And I know I'm Australia bound as we're recording for about 3 months, which is quite unusual for me to be here for that stretch of time. But I know it's so good to get out of the day-to-day, to be around others who are doing amazing things. And I too love my mastermind trips. I've got another one coming up a little later this year. And you and I were actually just talking with one of our masterminders this week in a strategy session. And she was telling us how much the last 2-day workshop that she attended with us really helped her to reset and recharge. And she'd had a really difficult 6 months following the loss of a very near and dear relative and other sort of life happenings. I was just so thrilled to hear that being around inspiring women really was that reset for her.
Yeah, it was really wonderful to hear her say that. And we literally saw it happen in the room. She kind of arrived, feeling, all the past really heavily on her shoulders, and she left so open and excited about the future. And I think that's what definitely happens to me when I go to my mastermind. We see that a lot with our masterminders. I'm sure you experience that when you participate in your mastermind. And we've spoken before just how much we believe in the mastermind format. And, I just keep getting more and more convinced about their importance. And that's not what today's topic is, though, is it? Today, we're covering a topic that I know you and I, Susie, have wanted to get into for a little while now, and I'm excited to dive in.
I am too. We've loved this strategy for a long time, and we've wanted to cover it on the show, as Michelle indicated. That strategy is about how you can boost your authority and grow your audience and own more space by doing something I think is awesome, and that is publishing a report. Now, what do I mean by report? Because just the word could conjure up these images of corporate world. We always like to go to the dictionary to get a definition, and the dictionary says that a report is an account given of a particular matter, especially in the form of an official document, after thorough investigation or consideration, or an appointed person or body. And that's a pretty good definition for what we're talking about here today. In this instance, you are the appointed one. You are appointing yourself as the creator of the report. And that immediately goes towards helping your credibility. Because think about reports that might have been published in your industry or another industry that you know. They're very often published by an association or a research body or a person of group in a position of authority. That's the word I was looking for. So simply by choosing this report format, you're immediately saying to the world, hey, I am an authority on this particular topic.
Yeah, that is for sure a really strong selling point of the report format. And not only does the report feel like that official document that you were talking about, Susie, when you look at that part of the definition you just shared that says, in inverted commas, after thorough investigation or consideration, it really implies that you've got some research or some unique data or some expertise or authoritative kind of insight to report on. I mean, that's just embedded in this idea of what a report is. And this will often make your reports very newsworthy, meaning you could pick up some PR, some featuring in the press somewhere, whether that's in mainstream media or in your own market niche and related media in that niche, from industry publications to be featured in podcasts, industry shows, getting invited to speak on stages and so much more, simply because you've got this report.
And having a topical report can be such a great door opener for you for all kinds of opportunities. And before we go much further, and we're going to cover this, I just want you to know that if you know what you do, you are an expert in something, you already have the credibility. This is just another way to get it out there in the world and to leverage that authority you already have. So in addition to giving you credibility and authority, it can work really well as a lead magnet. We're going to explore this today. What that means is that you can promote the report and give it away for free in exchange for someone's name and email. And that can be an awesome way to grow your email list. In fact, the report could be the thing that gets you invited onto a podcast or a speaking stage to discuss the report findings. And then you can even negotiate with the podcast host or the event owner to make the report available to listeners or participants. And all they have to do is go to your specific opt-in page, give their name and their email, and they get access to your report. So if you're speaking to a room of 200 people or you're on a podcast, that could mean that you get dozens and dozens and dozens of new people on your email list who you can then market the rest of your services to. So this is where your step 2 would come in. Here's what I mean. Once they download your report, the next step you're going to give them is right there and then on the thank you page after they've opted in the report. So that could be inviting them to attend a webinar, booking a strategy or discovery call with you, joining your Facebook group, buying something to help them on a topic that's specifically related to the report, like an online course or a tool or another product. So you can only be limited by your imagination here. And we've got an entire episode on this step 2, this next step process called the Steps 2 Secret. It's episode 11, and we'll give you a link to that later on.
It is definitely one of our more popular episodes. Actually, I think it's one of our most popular episodes ever. And that's because that step 2 strategy that Susie's just sharing with you is such a winner. Do not wait for people to consume your report, your content, and then go back to them a week later or 2 weeks later. You need to strike while the iron's hot and people are in that state of motivated need. That's when you want to offer the next step. So the big mistake when you put out a report or any kind of lead magnet is saying, well, look, they've opted in for that. It's 30 pages. I'll give them a week to read it before I reach back out to them. That's a big no. You want to have that next step right there on the thank you page after they opt in. Do not wait for them to have to consume your report to move forward with you. Now, we'll put the link to that step 2 episode that Susie has mentioned in today's show notes. And when you go to that episode, there's a really awesome free download where you can see actual examples of step 2 pages, real life examples, including how you word the call to action and how you lay out the pages and a lot of really important nuances that will help you get that page, that step 2 page really working for you. That download is a great thought starter if you're thinking of adding a step 2 to any kind of front end lead magnet, whether it's a report or not. And one other thing I wanted to add to what you just said, Susie, about that great idea that you mentioned to use the report to get you onto podcasts and speaking gigs, is that for visual mediums, like if you're presenting on a Zoom session or in person using slides on a screen at, say, a live event, when you invite people to opt in for your report, a really great way to get a huge percentage of the room opting in for your report is to use a QR code that appears on your slides or on screen in some way. So all people need to do is pull out their phone, turn their camera on, point it towards that QR code, and that will take them straight to your opt-in page. They're actually surprisingly easy to put together if you haven't had an experience with a QR code. And for extra bonus points and even higher conversion, it works great to actually build that point where they opt in for your report into your presentation and do that relatively early on. So, for example, you might mention the report and speak about a specific graph or image in the report quite early in your presentation. You might say, hey, I'm going to be talking about this key report today. And then you encourage people to get that and download it right then and there so they can follow along with you. So you actually create a little bit of space in your presentation for people to click on open their phone, view the QR code, go through and opt in. And by building the need for the report into the consumption of your interview, your presentation, whatever it might be, you can really increase the percentage of people who take action right then and there. And I've shared this strategy with a number of speakers who have been blown away by getting close to 100% of the room opting into their email list when they, previously might have only got just a handful of people using other strategies.
Yeah, I love the QR code strategy. It's one I've used successfully on stages over the last couple of years. And it's, the thing is with QR codes, well, now they've become pretty normal for people to use. They know what to do. They know where to point their phone, but it's still got that little bit of curiosity and difference to it, but also matching that with the fact that, we're actually using this inside of this training makes it a no-brainer for people to go ahead and grab that. And so I love that strategy. And when it comes to using the report to open doors, someone we've actually had on the show here before, because their report is an awesome lead magnet, is Joe Paluzzi of the Content Marketing Institute. And for many years, his organization published an annual report that outlined the latest content marketing trends and benchmarks. And that report opened so many doors for Joe. Podcasts like ours, press coverage, people opting into his email list to receive it, people visiting his website, getting on his email list to receive it, and of course the authority and recognition that brought him and his organization because they were the authors and the authorities of that amazing information about content marketing trends. And it's really great for him because he also offered books and other programs that were boosted by the exposure that the report gave him and the list that the report helped him create. And it's a really great example of someone owning the space by publishing a report. So Joe really owned that space of what is new and amazing in content marketing. So when he was on our show, which was quite a few episodes ago, and we'll include a link to that in our show notes, he was leveraging, our audience to grow his audience. Very smart. And so you'll see, if you go to the link in today's show notes, how Joe positioned the report, and it might inspire you with ideas for your own report if you're thinking that this is a strategy that could be used for you. The other thing I want to say about reports that Joe's example really illustrates is the momentum you can get over time when you publish the report more regularly. The other thing is it was an authoritative report. He didn't just slap something together as a lead magnet and call it a report. It actually was based on that definition that we mentioned earlier. Now, a report can totally be a one-off report that you create, but you can think about whether that report is something that you produce on a regular basis. So, for example, with Joe Paluzzi and the Content Marketing Institute, it was published annually, and this became an expected kind of anticipated event. But you can publish at other intervals as well. You might publish quarterly, or seasonally, or whenever a specific situation demands it. So, for example, if you're in the tech space, you might publish a report every time there's a big advancement, like the big shift that we saw in the last 12 months around artificial intelligence.
Yeah, I'm glad we're talking about this point because this is definitely how I've gained leverage with reports. I had a client for many years in the property investing space, and we would publish a quarterly State of the Nation report that covered each of the main Australian markets and gave an assessment of how each of those markets rated in terms of the investment opportunities in that market at that particular time, as well as any hot markets in the country or other trends or strategies to be aware of. And this was a hugely popular report. It certainly opened doors for media coverage, especially within that property investing kind of niche market. And there's lots of great media in that space. And my clients, ideal clients, was reading that media. But what I really loved about it was that, like you said, Susie, it was a great list builder, just like Joe's strategy was a great list builder for him because it was so topical and current. People really wanted it and it had that high perceived value. Like you said again, Susie, it wasn't slapped together. It was really an authoritative report. It had contained information that people would find difficult to get elsewhere. So we had a lot of new people joining our list to get their hands on it. And B, it was also a great way to stay in front of the people already on our list. Property is something that does or can change remarkably in those markets in just one quarter. So this report really lent itself to that more regular timing of that quarterly publishing. And, we had a standard format for the report, which while it took a bit to think about and to design the first time we put the report together, just picking up on that strategy you said of like giving the report some, regularity, we were literally rinsing and repeating that format. We just were updating the stats and the insights for each quarter for each market. So it became this really powerful lead generator and lead activator, those people who were already on our list that we wanted to get them activated and doing something, because every report offered people the chance to book in for a consultation. We had the next step built in, and we were able to do all of this without it costing a lot of money to make, both in terms of, costing a lot in terms of time or money. So if you're thinking about publishing a report, have a think about that interval. How frequently might you publish it? Is it a one-off report that you're just creating once? Or is it something that you could update quarterly or annually? And if you're not sure, no pressure, go ahead and make that first report and see how it lands, and then you can decide from there.
And you can really get momentum over time as you start to publish on a regular basis. And that's definitely what I saw with Joe Paluzzi's report. It became something that we look forward to every year, just to see what are the trends, what is happening. And reports are a really great way to get noticed by your ideal client, especially if you have a product or service that has some complexity to it or where things are regularly changing and people need to stay up to date or need to know how they sit against certain benchmarks. So, for example, this is a strategy we recommend if you're an expert in a particular space, especially if you're moving into a new area that you want to educate your clients about, or you want to launch a new product or service and you're looking for ways to stir up interest ahead of time. And one of our wonderful masterminders, Sue Bell of Susan Bell Research, she's done some amazing work into the retirement industry, and she's got some excellent data and perspectives that her ideal clients, people in the financial and insurance industries, really need to hear, seeing as many of them have a bit of an outdated point of view about how to communicate with retirees. And so there's been a seismic shift in recent years around the demographics of retirees, and Sue is in the driver's seat to see those shifts, spot those trends, and she's even done some of her own primary research and got some great stats that she could include in a report.
Yeah, a report would be perfect for Sue. And for anyone like Sue, if you're listening, if you've got a role advising industry or sharing your expertise on a specific topic, this might be pricking your ears up as well. And while Sue has done some primary research, so Susie was just saying she's actually gone out and conducted some research on her own bat, and that is one of her superpowers. She's in that research space. You don't have to do that primary research to put a report together. It's a great strategy to do that, by the way, but you could simply be compiling data and bringing it together from a range of other sources. That is a very useful thing to kind of curate that information. Or you could do a simple survey to your own list if you wanted to get some primary data, and ask them a whole series of questions and then say, we interviewed or we surveyed 1,000 people or 500 people or whatever that number is. And, here's what we found. And that data is incredibly valuable, and it's seen really with real authority, I think.
One of the things that Joe Paluzzi, who we mentioned a number of times already, did is, in addition to his own research, he brought together and tapped into his network of leading content marketing experts to share what they saw as the top trends. And that was a great way to outsource a lot of the content to others in a way that had a high perception of value, and it borrowed on their authority as well, because they were also content marketing experts.
Yeah, you make a great point. And, maybe if you're listening, you've got some peers or contacts that you could call on to share their perspectives in your report. And the great thing about that is those people may also be inclined to share your report to their audiences, which extends your reach and potentially gets you more and more people joining your list and knowing about what it is you do.
So if you go down this route and you have contributors, consider negotiating into the arrangement where you include them in the report. They're also going to share the report with their audience. Now, this can be a real win-win, because remember, you're sharing their profile with your audience far and wide as well. So they're likely going to be happy to reciprocate, but do negotiate that, if you like, at the outset. And if you don't have, if you are not a researcher, or you're not able to write reports like someone who is a researcher like Sue Bell does, then that's okay. Your report could be a compilation of blogs or publishing survey results. As Michelle said, you may go out to your audience and ask a series of questions that becomes then the report on the response from this particular type of client. So, for instance, say if we interviewed women business owners and we had, a good solid survey and we got those results, we could publish that report. It could be a contribution from various sources or experts, like we just mentioned, or compiling or creating data based on research, your own, or also leveraging others. It's really unlimited. So really start to think outside the box of how this could work for you. For many, many years, we inducted women into the Australian Business Women's Hall of Fame. And what we would do on an annual basis is we would create a keepsake report which compiled their collective answers to the survey that we gave them each year. But we also collated the information over years and years. And so we had close to 20 years worth of results in surveys of amazing data as to what those women's key habits were, what they believed about mentoring, what they believed about what help them become successful and stay successful. And it was such a powerful, fantastic source material for a report.
Yeah, and you might have a report that you're publishing monthly, and then you can take the best of that and compile it into, one evergreen kind of report or lead magnet. And what I loved about that content that you were just sharing there, Susie, was that it really had that opportunity to be evergreen. The factors, those core non-changing fundamentals that these really successful women were sharing in those surveys as they got inducted into your Hall of Fame, they were true last year, they're true this year, they'll be true next year. And so, you were able to compile an evergreen kind of version of that information as well and use it as a lead magnet for specific campaigns where it made sense. And I know for a long time that was one of your key lead magnets for
it was fantastic.
Yeah, for your mentoring. So if you're listening, I'm hoping this is sparking some ideas for you. What's some information maybe that you've been compiling? Like Susie had this treasure trove of content there. What have you been compiling that might not take much effort for you to kind of harvest and put together into a report?
And as I'm hearing us talk, I'm thinking, that evergreen content is still there. Plus now we've got more years and more women who we could be asking about those same success habits. Maybe there's a report waiting to happen. So it doesn't have to be hard to create, or it doesn't even have to look super fancy. This is something that you could go to market with fairly quickly if you wanted. So do think about the report as a report, and there's some standard elements to a report, if you like, that you'll want to include, like a compelling cover with a compelling headline, an introduction from you as the authority that put this information together, a method if there's one that's relevant. There could be a framework, an overview of the results, some specific results, and calling out some key things that are going to be especially interesting to the reader, some more information about you as the author, and then definitely a call to action, what it is that you want them to do next. And not only is that going to be in the report, but as Michelle referenced earlier, it's also going to appear on the thank you page when they are downloading the report. So I do recommend you get it designed professionally, but you can start with just getting the cover designed and then adding that to a simply formatted document that you might turn into a PDF or something you might create in Canva. You don't need to overthink it. And actually, I just want to let you know, if you haven't created a QR code, Canva allows you to create QR codes that take people to landing pages. And that's like a free opportunity that's right waiting in there. It's a feature that may not be widely known. I wanted to just add that, Michelle.
Oh, it's a great tip because, just going back to the QR codes for a minute, they are so handy. And I think we sometimes think, it's a bit techy. I couldn't do that. But actually, with about 5 minutes of investigation, you realize just how easy it is. And once you have it, oh my gosh, it's great. I always love it when a presenter shows me some slides and they have a QR code on it. I go, thank you. It makes me so much more inclined to get the thing that they're wanting me to get. So, and, the call to action, I think just, it's while we're talking about QR codes, and you mentioned that really important call to action, you want to be thinking about, what is that? Is it that you want them to give you a call? Is it that you want to offer some sort of 15-minute quick consult? Is it that you want them to apply for something? Is it that you want them to buy something? Is it that you want them to attend a free training? Is it that you want them to check out a particular video or join your Facebook group or any of those things? Really be clear about what the next step is you want this report to do. And this is the DNA of the Content Sells podcast. We have this mantra, no content without conversion. We're not asking you to create a report so you can go and do more work. Even if you go and build that list is only valuable to you if you're inviting those people to take the next step with you. And if you've got some kind of process that you've thought about in advance that's going to move those people in as many steps as it requires, no more and no less, towards buying from you. So really think about, what have I got right now that I'd love people to buy from me, and how might a report be one of the first steps they could take to buy that? This is great if you're a consultant, or you have professional services, or you have a product that's a little bit more complex and you want to just get known out there. But don't just get known out there. Have that next step. Let people get on a call with you, interact with you in some way, see your brilliance, and give yourself a platform to invite people to buy from you. So just on my little horse there for a moment about that. But yeah, look, did you have anything else you want to say on your horse about that, Susie?
No, I'm good.
But you were making some great points there about what to, just the nuts and bolts of what to put in your report. And I love just how straightforward you made that, Susie. And you don't have to make it any more complex than what Susie just said. And one thing I would say is just keep it visual. I often will look at reports and they're just wall-to-wall words and they're hard to read. You want to make it kind of skimmable. And Susie already mentioned Canva. They've got some fantastic templates just sitting in there ready for you to just go plonk, plonk, plonk. If you have a slide presentation that you are already presenting this information on, you can even take those Google Slides and convert them into a report. Like, you don't have to make this hard for yourself. Think about those assets. Like, what are you going to use to promote the report? Can you get somebody to help you, whether it's a VA or whether you use some software tools or you employ a designer, to just make a few graphics that make your report look good, like a 3-dimensional version of your report with your cover nicely laid out, or the internal pages of your report shown on like a magazine opened up so people can see the nice graph inside, so that they're going to want to click on that Facebook ad or on that LinkedIn post or wherever it is that you're promoting your report. And the other thing I would say is, you can use AI for this. You can use AI to help you brainstorm report ideas. You can input some data that you've got and ask AI to analyze and suggest ideas, or write that content, or compile your information, or take that raw data from those people that are contributing to your report and sharpen it up a little bit, or turn them all into a similar length if you want 5 people contributing 500 words and you get a bit of a mix mash of responses. All of those things you can use AI to make your job easier. And we've done some episodes on AI. We'll include some links to those in the show notes for today.
I love that suggestion, and maybe it's unleashed an idea for you. Oh gosh, I could use AI. The only thing that I will say, and Michelle will echo this, is that don't use it for research and assume that the responses are true and correct. AI can be very good at making stuff up. And so you definitely want to use it to brainstorm those ideas, to analyze your own data, but do not make sure you get a backup of facts if you are using AI to do the research, because you don't want to be putting misinformation out there. The other thing I want to say is, and we've touched on this already, but one of my favorite things about a report is that it gives you something you can really build some buzz about. As Michelle mentioned, our Business Women's Hall of Fame keepsake booklet, it would get us thousands of leads every year, and it would actually make it into the publications because it was newsworthy. So I suggest you set a date for when you're going to launch your report and work backwards from there, just like we do with all of the marketing strategies we recommend here or in our 12 months program. You want to set some time to do some pre-launch activities where you start sharing some behind the scenes of creating the report and teasing where it's coming. And again, if you're a regular listener to the show, you'll understand what I mean by pre-launch activities. So this is the runway that we're building up to the launch of the report. See, we optimize every opportunity of what we do as an opportunity to make a statement, to create some buzz. And so as you start to work on behind the scenes, what can you capture that lets people know you're working on something interesting that's going to be really useful to them? So this could include the process of data gathering. This is especially relevant if you're sending a survey to the list to get the source data for your report. And it could be something as simple as saying, hey, I'm putting together a report on XYZ, which is going to be published on this particular date, and I'd love to get your insights. Right? People want to be part of something that's newsworthy. So start letting people know on social media, or mention it on your podcast or your Facebook group or your emails or wherever you interact with your audience, that something is afoot, something is cooking. And so that's your pre-launch, really building up some early awareness that there's a report in the works. Then you move into the next stage of the launch process, which is pre-launch. Now, here you start to be really much more overt about the report, and you can start sharing images of the report, promoting the date that the launch is going to be published, the report is going to be published. You could even have some people opt in for early access, promising those who join the list will get the report first. You might even have a select group of people who might be reviewers of the report, who you can let in early, who are going to apply to be part of this review group and get early access. Of course, all this creates buzz. It gives you a good reason to be communicating with your audience via email, social media. This is also a great time to do a media release and start getting some interest. So the media love stats and facts. It makes story writing so much easier for them. You could even give them VIP early access. It's a great time to think about media as you launch your report. You want to put that in the mix. Even if you've never done media before, really think about how you could get on a radio station or a local newspaper or an industry magazine or an online publication to cover your report. And maybe this is a new area for you, but timing the media with the launch of your report is so important. Once the horse has bolted, it's too late. It needs to be like really precisely timed with the launch. They all want to be in first with the news. And of course, you want to be teeing up any podcast appearances on shows that are relevant to the content of your report. And you want to set these up ahead of the launch so that they're all being released around that time as well, if possible. Now, you want to bear in mind that some podcasts like ours, we record well in advance of the published date. So you might need to get on their radars quite early and just sort of, seed that thought. Hey, I've got a report coming out in October 2023. I'm letting you know now because this is what it's about. This is what I'm going to be talking about. Is there a spot on your show that's going to be relevant? Because I think this would be really useful to your audience.
So much gold just shared by you there, Susie Daphnis. I love that.
Very exciting. I love this topic.
I love this topic too. And I can imagine, this launch date, this moment in time in the future that you set, not just roughly, it's going to be early March. Pick a date in March that is going to be released and a time, and then start to build some anticipation around that. And Susie's just taken you through that whole journey as that anticipation builds, as the momentum starts to swirl around your project, as the media starts to pay attention. And this is the way to do it. You don't want to do all this work creating something and then just kind of dribble it out. You really want to come out with a bang with something like a report. And, we would love to know if you're thinking of doing a report, or maybe you've got one right now and it's working for you. Maybe let us know your top tips. We'd love to hear them. And you can talk to us at any time over on our Facebook page. Just search Facebook for Content Sells Podcast and you'll find our page there. So go ahead, let us know if you're thinking of creating a report. If you've got a report, share the link to it. We'd love to see it. Let us know what your top tips are. We'd love to hear from you.
We would love to hear from you. And I'm just excited. I want to see some amazing reports. If you're a member of the Her Business Network, be sure to post inside of our members group so that we can support the report, so that we can give it some PR as well. Very, very exciting. Now, in a moment, I'm going to share how you can get a link to today's show notes, because in those are going to be the resources and episodes that we mentioned on today's show, all laid out for you there. But first, we are very proud of our over 100 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. We love to share these marketing tips with business owners. So we would love it if you would take a moment to leave us a rating or review. If you enjoyed today's episode and you would do that for us, we would be so appreciative. I want to give a shout out to one of our listeners, the lovely Jackie Short, who was listening to an episode, which I think is going to be one of those evergreen episodes that we keep referring, because we've already referred it, I think, to 2 people this week, Michelle, in the last week, and that is the features versus benefits episode. This is an episode where we really unpicked the mistake that a lot of us make in our marketing, is that we go out and we tell our potential clients all the features of the wonderful things we do, but we don't articulate the benefits. And so Jackie said that was a helpful podcast. It's so easy to get stuck on the features. Absolutely right. And thank you so much, not only for commenting, Jackie, but also for listening to the show. So back to those show notes. Anything we mentioned here today, whether it was a resource or a past episode or both, you can find in today's show notes over at herbusiness.com/publish a report, all one word, herbusiness.com/publish a report. Now, we have a really cool episode coming up next. Michelle, would you tell us about it?
I'd love to. This is something that I know is near and dear to your heart, Susie, and near and dear to mine, both from the point of view of its importance, but also our own journey. It's an ongoing journey. The episode is called Imperfection is Beautiful, and we're sharing our top 6 tips for overcoming perfectionism. And I'll just speak for me, but I am definitely a recovering perfectionist. I definitely fall off the wagon sometimes, but it's a big lesson. So many, I think in particular women, business owners need to keep hearing. Many of the women business owners that we work with have had to really work on this. And when we see what they do as a result, when they see the doors that it opens, when they can start to let go of that hold that perfectionism has on them, they start to get more successful businesses. They start to get more opportunities. They get more joy back. They move faster and faster into momentum, because done is better than perfect. And imperfect is actually a really beautiful thing. Perfection can be holding us back from the money, the impact, the fun, the connections, the opportunities that are right there for the taking. If we could just shrug off that feeling like, oh, I can't do it because I've got 99.9% of the things right, but there's this 0.1 of the thing that is going to stop me from moving forward. So we're going to be having a good old chat about that, I think, Susie, on our next show.
That is coming up 2 weeks from now. If you don't already subscribe to the show, hit subscribe wherever you are listening, and that will drop as soon as it's ready, Now, Michelle, anything you want to say before we go today?
Oh, it just occurred to me, if somebody's listening to this and thinking, well, who am I to think I can publish a report? I'm not really an authority. I'm not really an expert. Let's just dismiss that thought, because you have got information to share that the world needs. And this is a really great way to build your authority. So first, to own the space with a report, you kind of need to own the space that you are an authority that can write a report. So I just wanted to throw that last thought in.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time right here on the Content Sells Podcast. Bye for now.